Some of you, if you guys have listened to some of my previous podcasts, you know who Jason is. You know the wealth of knowledge that he adds and the value he adds. So we're excited to have him on the show today. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. Obviously, none of this is planned and or scripted. So come what may. But a piece of this is because it's the new year, we're going to be talking about fitness, that discipline, right, to start the new year. And right when we were kind of laughing and having a good time, it just reminded me like why it's so important outside of the fitness aspect and having that self-discipline on why it's so important to have a community of other men to be around. And it's this idea of, I actually wrote this down I was reading the Bible this morning and I had this thought of, it said it said along the lines of, leaders are brokers of gifts. Leaders are brokers of your spiritual gifts. And I had this epiphany of competing versus completing. Men are we're so competitive, and that just changed the dynamic of the room real quick. Everyone's staring at me like,
say more words.
Get in there. By nature.
I like your mouth noises.
Nice and deep laugh.
I think that's part of why we have a hard time.
It's this idea of
having relationships with each other, because we don't put that mask down enough to be like, this is the real me. And I'm afraid to show it to you because you might judge me. So I'm going to keep this mask on, and you're never really going to have that full, real connection.
Absolutely, because you can't be vulnerable with each other.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And that whole vulnerability and masculinity, like, it's like, oh, no. You know what I mean? Like, nowadays, everyone's saying it, be vulnerable, be whatever, but it's not.
Just be genuine.
Yes.
Just be yourself.
That's
you know
what
I mean?
natural to the older generations.
Yes.
Maybe for the younger ones, just because they're trying to make it more natural.
Yes.
But for the older generations, it's like, no.
It's not. And that goes back to in history when we went to war, right? When our grandfathers and great-grandfathers, when they went to war and then came back, after all the stuff that they saw, they came home, and it was, what they saw with their eyes, the things they had to do, because it's war.
We had a generation of men that were emotionally closed off.
Yes.
And they had to still raise kids because they had to come back home, hopefully, to families.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, hopefully, exactly. Yeah. Right? Like, imagine that you're in a battle zone, and you don't know if you're going to go home. Imagine the mindset you have to bring yourself to do some of the things you have to do to survive in a war.
Yeah. And then you got to talk about it.
Yeah. And then you want to, and then like you're like, I might not come home, and then you do go home.
Yeah.
It's like,
but did you really though?
Oh.
Or did the old you stay on that battlefield?
Yeah.
You know, who came back? Right? Because war changes people.
Exactly.
It does.
So who came back? Is it still you?
Or did you come back with a battle?
A fraction of.
Did you bring the battle home?
Yeah.
See?
Oh.
See?
You definitely do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you start, treating people as if either they're soldiers or, above you, beneath you, and, you have a certain rank in your house. And
disposable.
It's just like,
It's not, when you come home, it's not as simple as enemy and friendly anymore.
Yeah. Everybody's.
Right. It's different. Like everyone's got a different dynamic. When you're in war, it's kind of easier to draw the lines of I'm the good guy, these are the bad guys.
Yeah, everything is painted black and white.
Yeah, it's a lot more simple.
Yeah.
You come, but you go into the real world, and you go to a grocery store, and someone comes into your aisle, friendly, not friendly, I'm not sure. And now you're like trying to work out all these circumstances. Like that like is a real thing that I had to deal with, like especially in law enforcement. We were such a busy city. We were like we were up there in crime. I think we're actually number 2 at one point in crime in the Bay Area, because it goes off like square footage and stuff, right? But I think we were number 2 at one point while I was working, and it was wild. And I noticed that I would still be in that hyper vigilant defensive warrior mode, even when I'm at home grocery shopping with my wife. And it was like, you really couldn't turn it off, because when you're in the job, your mind is in the job. You're in warrior mode. When you're out of the job, you're working out, you're training to be a better warrior. So you see, even out of it, you're still trying to put into it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
And you're trained to see all these things.
Yes.
Right? We were talking about I forgot the name of it yesterday morning.
Reticular activator.
Reticular activator. So
RAS.
can you explain what the reticular activator is, please?
I think it's a part of the brain, or a concept of the brain, in which what we see is based off of
Like past experiences and
what
stuff.
we focus on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. What we see is what we focus on. You're right. Well, that's it.
Yeah. So you gave an example yesterday, right? And it said, "Oh, how many red cars did you see on your way to work?"
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that was
I
a
didn't
good
see
one.
any.
That was a good one. I never heard the red
I've
car
heard of it.
theory.
It's called red car theory. So essentially, someone goes to work and the boss asks that employee, "How many red cars did you see today?" And the guy's like, "Oh, maybe one."
Yep.
And then he said, "What if I told you I'll give you $10 for every car you see on the way to work tomorrow?" And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he ended up seeing 8 or 9 cars, and anyone would. So essentially, it's saying if you focus on one thing, you'll realize that it's always in front of you. You know, like opportunities are always in front of you, and we don't see them.
Yeah.
So
And so
That's
as
nasty.
a police officer,
yeah.
and you're trained to see these bad things because you have to stop them or you have to intervene or whatever. You can't just stop seeing them now.
Yeah,
Right?
You can.
Because your reticular activator
Yeah,
is
yeah.
engaged.
That's a great. Yeah.
It's
That's a great
just it
thing.
just goes like that saying, if you look for problems, you'll always find problems. If you look for solutions, you'll always find solutions.
oh, that's very interesting. That's true.
It is,
That's
man.
true.
Very true. Man, but I found myself like actually getting frustrated with my family whenever they weren't thinking the same way that I was. Like after going through that training and whatnot, it's like I am hyper vigilant, as you said, where when I go out in public, I'm always looking at people's like waistband,
Yeah,
leg. What is this
exactly.
person holding? Why are they wearing a trench jacket and it's 100 degrees outside?
Exactly.
And my wife was like, "Oh, that's natural. It's Chicago." I said, no, that's not natural. Man, it's 100 degrees out plus the relative humidity or whatever, and this person's wearing a trench jacket. Why are you not worried about this? I get mad about that. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
they don't have the same training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only the
frustrating.
training, I feel like a lot of it's innate in men in general. Not just because of our biological makeup, but you go back to actual nature and you think of animals.
Yeah.
How they are in protecting their young and protecting their spouse, or the female animal within that family unit. And also the competition. So that brings in so many things with men. I look back to animals, and competition is one of them. Breeding, protection, those are the main things that I feel like are innate in men in general. So it comes from that. And then from there, I think the automation with being overly crucial with seeing what's around you and your surroundings, and I feel like that's very very natural in us, and it only gets exacerbated when you have the training or you've had that as a previous occupation, or for me, I was a bouncer once, and
Yeah.
I remember walking to my car, and this was in Chicago too, in Lincoln Park. First thing you do is every corner, you walk around it a certain way, right? So you're analyzing, who's on your left, and you see the person in front of you, and you're examining them up and down. Is this person a threat? So you do it once, it's with you for a while. I don't think that ever goes away. That goes for people who are in the military, people who are in law enforcement.
Yeah.
It goes for so many things.
Yeah.
Man.
Most definitely. But yeah, we have to always guard our hearts.
Yeah.
We always have to make sure that, we don't mistreat the wrong people, right? Like as military police officers, it's hard, And
Yeah.
I believe that's part of the reason why there's so many, the divorce rates in those
huge.
areas are
Totally.
so high,
Yeah. Absolutely.
And because it's hard,
Yeah.
We're just human.
Absolutely. Man, so while we were talking about that, I had to look up a Bible verse because just talking about discipline in general, having discipline will propel you to, different levels in life. And Hebrews 11, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it.
Yeah.
That's very good.
That is filthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is Hebrews
Absolutely.
11?
Yep. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Might get that tattooed. Yeah.
Did you say Hebrews 11?
I'm talking like more so lower back.
Lower back? Yeah.
That way, every time I bend over, somebody sees it.
Sensei.
Yeah.
Sensei no more.
Telling you.
It's just like, what the heck did I sign up for? What did I agree to be on, man?
Do that thing that you do to my elbow.
Do that thing.
Exactly.
Make it pop out and pop back in.
Jason, now you got to get the matching tattoo. All of us got. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Left butt cheek.
Left butt cheek. That's for the brotherhood.
You're the brother. I swear, this is manly. This is manly.
He actually did it.
We were all like this. Oh, what the heck? He actually did it. Did anyone tell him it was a joke?
Yeah.
Oh man.
But that going back to the reticular activating system, it's a powerful thing because it's a reflection of what you're focusing on. So at that time, I was focused on self-preservation, right? Like especially when I'm with my family. Like now that I have a daughter, I'm even more so. Like I'm better at hiding it now, but I'm even more so now where it's like it's not just a threat to the adults, but what's a threat to a kid? Oh, sharp corners. Like there's so much more. But the power of the reticular activating system, because I mean I get what people who may be listening who are not in that culture, in that warrior culture, where you got the uniform or the badge or whatever. But it's a good self-reflection to think about, okay, so what are you focusing on? What are you seeing in your life? Because if you're only seeing like, oh, I'm cursed, or
I'm fat.
I'm fat, right?
Or I have no friends.
I have no friends.
Or I have no money.
Right. Because that's, and you may be true. You probably are fat and you probably have no friends, but that's just, you focusing on that is you focusing on the problem rather than trying to find a solution. Yeah. So if you don't have some friends, why don't you step up, be the friend that you wish you had to somebody else?
There you go. Yep.
Because like for every problem, there's got to be some sort of solution.
Yeah.
That you can at least do now, that you can control.
Yeah.
And especially for relationships and just people in general. You have to give before you can take.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So like you want friends, it doesn't just happen. You know what I mean? You got to put yourself out there. You got to step out of your comfort zone. You have to resist the commodities, and if you're embarrassed or you're shy, you got to put that all aside, because if you want true friends, they're going to take you as you are. And so, you got to go over and say, hi, my name is Alfredo, so-and-so. I don't know anyone around here, just put yourself out there,
Yeah.
It's like dating, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
People are afraid of dating in the same reason. It's just like, oh, I'm shy and I don't really this, I'm insecurities. I'm like, hey, those insecurities are going to be there regardless.
Exactly.
And if you want to have somebody that's going to love you and accept you for who you are, you got to put yourself out there anyways.
Exactly. I think that's kind of where that discipline kind of comes into it, though, because we say discipline as though it's not something that we can like train to, right? But I think that it very much is. Even in that dating aspect where, you might date your church, date an individual, whatever the relationship might be to whatever it is that you're going after. You're dating that thing, right? So you're trying to see if this is something that you want in your life for a long period of time. Even working out, you're dating the idea of high intensity training, weight building and such, and then you go along with whatever it is that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then as you start to develop that relationship, you start getting better at it. And that's where that discipline really comes in, whereas I can't live without this thing. I have to go about dedicating the time that I give to this thing on a daily basis to go about feeling good about myself, and then potentially building somebody else up along your path as well. That discipline ends up kicking in. It's amazing.
Damn.
Absolutely.
Wow, that was great.
Yeah.
I love that
brilliant, bro.
explanation.
That dating.
Yeah,
like,
dating. Because you're not just going to go and start squatting 300 pounds, right?
Exactly.
Like you're going to go in there and get your toes wet and be like, all right, hey, weights, how you doing?
Exactly.
Hi, I'm Alfredo.
Yeah, I'm putting myself out there, shake your hand,
Hello,
grab a dumbbell.
45.
But no.
35 just dumped me.
Yeah, so I'm moving on to 50.
50, boy.
Yeah,
exactly.
But that's a great way to describe that.
That's so good.
And that's everything
Yeah,
in
man.
life. You're
is,
not
absolutely.
a master. You're not in a deep relationship right off the bat. You know what I mean? Like you got to
Absolutely.
work at it. it takes
man.
time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of all the things I'm dating right now. You
Yeah.
know, and one of them is
Oh.
the gym. You know, it's a big factor.
How long you guys been dating?
Yeah.
Oh, is she nice?
It's off and on.
It's complicated. It's complicated. In a relationship or no? Oh, yours says in a relationship.
Yeah.
She's still single.
What about the Facebook? What is the status?
Oh man.
Oh, dude. Oh my God. This is hilarious.
It's amazing just listening to you guys to the point where I feel like I'm just watching you guys. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I got front row seats. But going back to the whole
so good.
discipline with dating, it kind of makes sense because if I'm dating the gym, let's say, you need that discipline, which you learn over time just through consistency, right? I mean, that's how I see discipline, is just consistency.
Yeah, man.
So how long you been dating the gym though? That was my question.
I want to say off and out.
That's okay.
But,
That's okay.
It's a good answer.
Yeah.
But,
You should ask her. She has a different answer.
when I think about the gym in general, I feel like I've been going over 2 decades. And when I say that, you know, I had to have my best friend say that. You know, he's like, we've been going for decades. I was like, wow, we really have been. 10 years is a very long time, but to say decades when people ask, wait, maybe I should get closer.
Yeah. Try not to.
To swallow it.
I almost didn't hear that.
Very well.
Very well.
He's like, I'm not coming back.
I ain't coming back.
I ain't coming back.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And the reason why I ask is because as I got to know you yesterday morning, you got into bodybuilding.
Yes.
So tell us about that journey.
Yeah, like I said yesterday, it's a long story and a long journey, but yeah, it's something that has been a part of my life for many reasons, and I'm trying to think of what the most important thing is in regards to that. And so many things come to mind. That's why it's such a difficult question. Kind of like when someone says, hey, so what do you do? You know, and I feel like I've done a lot. Yeah.
And you have done a
I
lot.
date many things.
Yeah, exactly. And you really do. I mean, you bodybuild, DJ, mechanic, physical therapist.
You've been around, bro.
So you have
You've
a
been
lot
around.
of experience.
You've been in a lot of relationships. I mean, do they know all about each other? Is the question.
Player.
Playa.
Try to hide one from the other.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, I got to go to the grocery store, but it's not that serious.
Don't worry about her.
Don't worry
She's
about
nothing.
it.
Just produce.
She's not.
I only love you.
Oh man.
That's so funny, man. That's so funny. But you have been around in a lot of different ways. Like not, I mean, that sounds bad. I'm sorry, but
That does sound horrible.
It sounds horrible. And I'm not judging, but I have. But this whole concept of dating, I love it because there's who said it? There was a book that I'm reading, and I mentioned it to you before. I've mentioned it. I can't think of it. Tripping on the title of the book. I'm trying to think of it. But anyways, they said that when you are, let's say you're dating, right? And then you move in with each other before you're married, which is culturally acceptable now, right? That's, but in the Bible it says don't do that. Don't, do that until you're married. Don't, have sex and stuff. So in the book, he talks about how dating is like preparing for marriage. It's practice for marriage. But when you move in together before you're married, you're practicing divorce.
That's very.
It was such a unique thing because when you break up and you're not married, who's going to take this? Who's going to take that?
Ooh.
Is that not divorce?
That's filthy.
Yeah.
But you just don't have the marriage contract.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that.
Bro, I know.
Yeah.
Isn't, you know what I mean? Like you're practicing divorce when you move in with somebody. And I mean, I'll be straight up and I'll tell them, Carlene and I lived together before we got married. We were engaged and stuff, but that was a different circumstance because I moved out to California and all that stuff. But that whole idea of dating is practicing for marriage. But then when you take it to the next level and you live with each other, that you're almost just practicing for divorce because it's like marriage without the commitment.
Yeah. I totally agree with
Isn't
that.
that a trip?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You're practicing divorce. I was like,
It's legit because a lot of our relationships don't end up working out.
yes.
It's tough.
And it becomes normalized.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, because
Exactly.
now, like you said, the culture is accepting of it. And it's like, oh, we're just moving in together. We take it to the next level. Yay. You know,
Exactly.
cute Instagram pictures and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But in reality, like you said, you're really practicing. You're setting yourself up for disaster, right?
Yeah.
In the event that it doesn't work out. And then you have the forever dating people, right? Couples
Yeah.
that just like, well, we're just not going to get married. It's just a piece of paper, right? We're just
Exactly.
bringing the law into it. And just,
Exactly.
this and that.
I don't believe in that.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, no, it's not just that, you know what I mean? Like, there's a much deeper reason why God implemented the institution of marriage.
Plus the tax benefits. Yeah.
Plus the tax benefits. Yes, it's incentivized.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that marriage is really a safety net, right? It's a protection. It's a fence, right, to corral you both and to, like you said, the commitment, right? Like you're taking vows under God, saying it's me and you for the rest of our lives. We're going to do life together, the highs and the lows. Whatever you go through, I'm going to be there. If I mess up, you're going to be there. If you're whatever it is, for sickness and in health, riches and rags. So that is the perfect structure to raise a family in. Because children need stability, and God's original plan was man and woman. Right, and we see that in the Eden. Right, that was the first institution. Right, it's the family structure, and that's the safest way to practice intimacy as well. Right, if you're going to have sex with an individual. Now, all of these insecurities that you had, right, you can air them out. You can share them with someone else. And hopefully, if you chose correctly, and if this is a compassionate individual that truly loves you for who you are, they'll work with you, and they'll tell you, well, that's not something to be insecure about, or I never even realized, or why do you feel that way? Let's talk about it, whatever the case is,
Dude, that ends up being the case in like almost everything that we date, right?
Yeah.
Because you go to the gym because you want to look, the opposite of what you might look right now. Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to the gym to go about building that relationship with the weights and whatnot, the other people around there.
Yeah.
Oh, this person does, abs really good. Let me see what they do. You start incorporating that into your life, and now you got that washboard, set of abs and such. But you're divorcing that mentality of, going and eating all this processed food or whatever it might be that's contributing to you having the, the cake belly or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And you're going after, that ideal self. So you're divorcing that old style mentality the same way that you do with moving in with an individual. I was just talking about this with one of my close buddies not that long ago, where he had just recently got married, and for whatever reason, in that first 6 months was extremely challenging for him, right? And I think it's the same thing with any relationship that we end up finding ourselves in, because that first whatever amount of time period, you're still battling, that old style mentality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where it's like, man, I really don't want to go to the gym right now.
Yeah. Your mindset has to change.
Exactly. I'm used to having, multiple girlfriends at a time. Why am I only settled down with this one?
Yeah.
So now you're having to divorce that old style mentality to, kind of shift into that new you.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
It's like the Israelites in the desert, right? God made them roam for 40 years. The previous generation that were slaves thought like slaves.
Yeah.
And then there was a new generation that was brought up in the desert. That
Absolutely.
was warriors.
When you told me that, I've never pieced that together.
yeah,
Yeah, man.
God had to change their mindset.
I thought
Exactly.
that he put them in. He led them to the desert because they were just being disobedient, right?
Right.
Well,
I thought
that was part of the
That
reason,
was
yeah.
part of it.
Part of it,
But I didn't understand at the depth that you guys were explaining it. That old generation was kind of stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
And
They still wanted to go back to Egypt.
They still
Exactly.
wanted to go. They were still in that slave mentality, even though they had the freedom.
Yep.
So literally, you had to cut that off because that's gonna filter into the new
culture,
generation.
the new
Yeah.
culture.
Exactly.
And I'm like, you can't still have a slave mentality when you're trying to go for freedom.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's tough, man.
Chew on
Yeah,
that.
man.
Chew on that, son.
That is filthy.
That is- I'm
There's
like,
so many pieces of information being spit out at one time, and there's so much going on.
Don't eat sugar. Stop eating sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
New year, new you. Stop it.
Jason's like, this is a
No,
good drug.
You know what? That's what it feels like, because there's so much information being spit out at one time, and different concepts with a lot of depth and multiple ones that are intertwined. And I'm still trying to get back to the dating and the discipline. And I'm that far back. with everything.
That's why we got to record it, bro.
Yeah,
that's why you can go back.
I gotta
and
run
listen.
it back,
You gotta run it back. Run it back.
Exactly.
But it all intertwines.
It
Dating
does.
and the divorce piece of it. So we take a step back. We take these ideas of what are we dating? What are we kind of like investing into all these little relationships, into all these little, idols.
Yeah.
Maybe
There you
we
go.
got some idols building
Okay,
up in our lives.
okay, yeah.
Things that, and it was really cool, an interesting way that an idol was. I think I wrote it down. It said idols were.
Go ahead, talk about that thing, man.
While you're looking for that, we idolize certain things and we don't even realize it, right? Because of all the time that we're devoting to it.
Exactly.
And the way that I think about something that you're worshiping, something that is an idol in your life, is if God took it away, would you let Him, or would you be mad about it? And God said, this is no longer for you, and takes it away. You can be mad at God for it. You can be upset about it, or you're going to say it was yours to begin with, God. Take what you
That's
want.
very interesting.
What's mine is I own nothing. You own it all.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's a scripture that says, "Tell me where your treasure is, and that is where your heart is." You know.
Ooh.
Yeah, like I
So-
said, this is a lot.
Yeah. So
man. It's
you-
legit.
I love that.
you have
I
to
love that.
realize
Yeah.
where your time is going.
Yeah,
because-
it really. Yeah.
And is it your wife? Is it jiu-jitsu? Is it your phone? Is it shooting? What is it?
Yeah.
What are you devoting more time than you should be?
Because that's especially in the new year when this episode comes out, right? We have all these people starting to come to the gym, which is good, right? You're in that,
And they'll drop out 6 weeks
and
later.
right. Well,
But at least they try, though. I'm saying, like
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
And
they
to-
have to try. Never stop trying. Never stop trying.
we'll poke fun at you, but but don't stop trying.
Yeah. Always keep trying.
Always keep trying, because then we're not gonna have anything to talk about at the beginning of the year.
So I guess I would ask Jason, like, what would you recommend to the people that are, living a sedentary life and wanting to go about making that change into potentially being a bodybuilder? Because I know in those initial phases, it's frustrating, because you think that you're a bigger person. Like, oh, dude, I should be able to go in there and lift like 700 pounds, and then you can barely pick up the 45-pound,
Yeah,
bar.
I mean,
Ego lifting.
Yeah,
These are mislabeled for sure.
Hey,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get to a certain place, of course, you should set some goals. But first of all, if you're a sedentary person or a person who's not very active, the easiest thing I can say, because there's so many things I could say, is just to be active. Start with something little, start walking, start moving. And I understand it can be difficult for people with injuries or people who have health conditions, but if we take it at the lowest level, walking, if you're able to walk, just walk. Even me, doing cardio at a higher level or a lower level, even if it is just walking, is very beneficial. And
So just starting, basically.
Exactly.
just starting. And you know what? This kind of goes back to the discipline. You have to take initiative, right?
Exactly.
And the whole idea of taking initiative is hard for some people, and for some people you just got to man up and take initiative. And people don't even have that mentality because they're stuck thinking, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough. So it's just a mental shift to some degree. But I say, and there's many studies on this, if people are depressed or people are having mental issues or any type of feeling of difficulty, movement and physical activity alone automatically has some influence on and will have some improvement on your brain in general. And from there, it makes it easier to improve your mental wellness and health. So
that is filthy, man. So I think that throughout that journey, one of the things that really helped me when I was like falling out of the military and all that other craziness was finding that accountability buddy. And really, my accountability buddy ended up being my watch. Right. So how the watch ends up doing like a step tracker and all that other craziness. So if one day I ended up walking like 10,000 steps or whatever, and then the next day I only ended up walking like 200, like, oh, What happened?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so holding myself accountable just by that little device. And then, you know, if I did actually have, you know, Alfredo or Angelo sitting next to me, was like, hey, man, how many steps did you get this week? I was like, you know, 200. Like 200 all week, you know, type deal. But using that just device to, you know, keep yourself on track.
Yeah.
You know, and even if you're just taking, you know, one extra step every day, that one extra step adds up to a calorie or whatever it is that you want to call it. And
Take
then
the
you're gonna,
stairs instead of the elevator.
and that's tough, man.
I know it.
Especially in the United States, we have these creature comforts. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Ooh,
anytime that we start to, anytime we start to, you know, feel a certain way, we seek after that thing that, you know, gives us comfort.
Yeah.
So whether that be, it's a donut for me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I love donuts. Yeah.
Donuts are so good.
Why are you looking at me when you see that?
Hey, why do I see donuts over there?
I love donuts, especially the glazed ones.
The ones with Krispy Kreme.
Exactly.
Oh, dear.
Shout out Krispy Kreme.
Exactly.
Send us some donuts.
As we're sitting here,
As we're talking about, like, get rid of sugar.
It means nothing, baby. It means nothing.
It means nothing, baby.
You're number one.
Don't worry, fruits, donuts are just a one-time thing. It's just a
I'm
one.
telling you, man. You know, but I think that having that accountability, but if you will, it kind of builds up a resilience.
Yes.
Right? That kind of leads into, I know what you wanted to talk about with our logo.
Yes.
Right? Because the Redwood tree, there's a lot of symbolism to it, man.
Dude, a lot, man. It's nuts.
I'll let you go ahead and introduce the topic first before I get into, you know, some of the symbolism that was surrounding
it's so good, man, and it's a great lead up to it because for a lot of people that ask about I'm like looking at my shirt and I'm like, that's not it right there. I gotta cover that up. It's up here.
it up.
These guys got it on their chest. It's 3 spears, right? And it stands for our. If you see it on the websites, we talk about it all the time. Restoring manhood, rescuing children, and rebuilding family or rebuilding family values. Now, the symbolism with the redwood tree is really, really interesting because we had a buddy, Samuel, who he'll be on the show real soon as well. One of my first conversations with Samuel, he had noticed that I was born in Redwood City, California. So he's like, oh, what do you know about redwood trees? I'm like, I know they're just big as hell. Like literally, I was like, I just know they're huge. That's it. Like I know nothing about it. You know, you can drive through them in California, and they're just freaking massive.
Yeah.
And they film a lot of movies in these forests because it's the scenery is crazy. Mm-hmm. And he was like, and turns out he's like kind of a tree enthusiast. Yeah. He knows some stuff about trees. Him and his I think daughter went out there for a vacation. So, anyways, Samuel was telling me like, you know, the interesting thing about redwood trees is people think they're so big because their roots run deep. They actually run very shallow. But because they run shallow, they go out wide and they interconnect with one another.
It's like they need each other.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You jumping the gun here. You jumping the gun. No, so,
point.
So they intertwine with each other.
Exactly.
And it's such a great symbolism. Like you can't pull one tree without pulling all of those trees out. So even though we think like I need to go deep and be on my own, the real strength comes in when you intertwine with other redwood trees. Here's the thing too. Redwood trees cannot actually grow. And anyone fact check me on this. Like I read some of this stuff and I'm like, whoa, after Samuel was telling me like, dude, this stuff is nuts. If you guys know more about redwood trees, let me know because we're super interested. Anyways, redwood trees actually need stress in order to grow. So when the seed or the nut or whatever falls out, it hits the ground, it won't open up unless there's a fire or a flood or something stressful to make it grow. Otherwise, that seed won't open up.
That's interesting.
I'm like, what?
That's great.
And here's another piece. When they intertwine with each other, they form circles.
The trees are in circles.
The trees in formation is in a circle.
That is filthy.
Right? And I'm like, yo.
So those roots are like pulling on each other.
Those roots are intertwined with each other. So you pull one out, you can't because it's going to be connected to that one's connected to another one.
Yeah.
And that is such a great reminder and symbolism for life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Men, we need each other.
Yes.
We need this.
Yes.
What we're doing right now with each other is awesome.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact there's a lot of men out there that are listening. There's women out there. Shout out Helena. I know you're listening. Thank you. Appreciate you, girl. There's a lot of people listening out there that need this as well. They need a group. And just like you're saying, accountability, which is a great lead up. They need a group to keep you grounded. You can try to be the standalone tree, but when that storm comes, if your roots are not deep enough, see you later.
So I had a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about regarding the symbolism, if you don't mind.
Do it.
Man,
Do
so
it.
I'm just going to list off what it was that I found on the internet in regards to the redwood tree.
Oh, you did the Googles?
Oh, absolutely,
you did
man.
the Googles.
I always do.
Always do, baby. Let's do, baby. You guys are, man.
Yeah, so the redwood tree is supposed to symbolize wellness, safety, longevity, wisdom, communication, strength, resilience, and healing.
Wow.
I love it.
So you consider all those things in comparison to what it is that, you know, we're trying to do with this podcast and such. Wow. You know,
That
the roots being like shallow, you know,
So-
but being able to reach out to, you know, a multitude of people, you know, if we grow that big.
That
you know.
is when we grow that big.
Yeah.
You know, I believe it.
Exactly.
I believe
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And that is so, it just hit me this morning right before we came over here. I was reading 1 Corinthians 12. You guys familiar with that? They talk about the fruits of the Spirit. And I'm sorry, not the fruits of the Spirit. It talks about the body. The body, how we are different body parts of the church.
Of Christ.
Explain that, because you actually explained this to me a couple weeks ago, and then I finally read it and I'm like, holy crap. And then you're talking about it,
Yeah.
how it intertwines with each other. Like, you may be made to be an eye, but that doesn't mean the ear's not necessary.
Exactly.
Right? Like, if you're the eye and I'm like the ear, you're not more or less important than I am. Like, but I'll be like, well, I can't see. But that's
Yeah.
what he was made for.
Exactly.
And when we come together, we make the whole parts of the body, and that's how we move.
Exactly.
But how many times are we like, oh, God can't use me?
Yeah.
I'm the nipple.
But the nipple has so much importance in the early part of life.
I'm the dude. I'm the dude. I'm the nipple on the man.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Aesthetic purposes.
God was like, I don't want you guys to feel left out.
Where do I put? There you go. Two. I'll put two. I'll give you a buddy. I'll give you
Oh man.
And your parents were kind of weird. We'll give you 3.
Yeah. You're lucky. You're lucky.
Oh man.
But that I can you guys go a little deeper on that part of the scripture, because that I love. I think that correlates to that, hand in hand,
Yeah, man.
where you may have a different skill set than someone else. Doesn't make you any better or worse. It doesn't make them any better or worse. But you are made to play your role in the bigger part. And when you come together, you can move together. Right? And that's such a, oh man, like,
So I guess it kind of goes into what we were kind of talking about, like prior to even starting the podcast, where you wonder, you know, the deaf person's, you know, music, if you will, how they end up hearing through, you know, their physical touch.
oh, yeah.
And such. And
Interesting,
then,
yeah.
You know, the blind person's dreams. Do they end up having, well, the blind person from birth, do they end up having the same style dreams that, you know, a seeing person
Right.
would have? The mute person's, you know, I guess communication, if you will. And, you know, of course, we have sign language and whatnot. But for the unknowing person, what do the signs really mean? They don't really mean anything. Right? So,
Yeah.
without, you know, those certain parts of our lives, we feel disconnected. You know, so that where I might be able to communicate with somebody if I am a signing person, but if the other person doesn't know sign, then everything that I'm trying to tell them is pointless. Up until I take out my phone, it's like,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and now they can understand what I'm saying. But where's the bathroom? As I'm, you know, squirming in place, it doesn't really mean anything up until you can actually go about communicating. So I guess the interesting part about the way that the body ends up working is, you know, all those neural connections and such, feeding down to your muscles and such. And I think that that's exactly what the body of Christ ends up doing, right? Because we don't really move without some kind of, you know, neural pathway from the head. So God is feeding us, all of these things that he wants us to go about doing. But if we move prior to, him giving us the action, then it kind of just looks like discombobulated. Kind of like that person that's like breakdancing or something like that, and then they actually break.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a verse that says that he is the true vine, right? And so if we have to be attached to him if we want to live. If we're disconnected from him, we're just like a body part that gets dismembered and it dies.
Exactly.
It doesn't have flow and,
Exactly.
it dies. So Corinthians 12, right? The first half of it is talking about the spiritual gifts, but then you jump down to verse 12 and it says, just as a body, though one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body. So it is with Christ. And then you jump down to verse 15, says, now if the foot should say, because I'm not the hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. If the eye should say, if the ear should say, because I'm not the eye, I do not belong to this body, then it would not if not for that reason, stop being part of that body. So yeah, you explained it very well. Like if the whole body was just an eye, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where is the sense of hearing?
Yes.
Right? It goes on to talk about that. And so we all work together, and God made us purposefully, right? Sometimes we think that our insecurities we're insecure sometimes about the wrong things, right?
Ooh.
And so we don't realize that God made us purposefully, right? He made us like that for a reason, because we have a role to play, because we have a job to do, because we're part of the body, and we're just trying to operate alone.
Yeah.
We're not connected to the head. We're not connected to the true vine, and we're not connecting to the rest of the body, which is the church of Christ.
Absolutely, man. And I know that we've always been asked, like, well, if you had to give up, 1 sense, what would it be? And everybody, typically says like smell, of course. But if you gave up your smell, you wouldn't be able to taste the food.
Oh, dude.
Right?
Dude, I hated that when I had COVID. Oh,
Yeah.
I hated it so much. And it was actually kind of scary because
Exactly.
I forgot what happened, but
I paid for this $300 steak and I couldn't taste it.
Yeah, I hated it because I think there was like a gas leak or something, and I had no
that's
idea.
horrible. See?
Yeah, so it was actually that scared me. It shook me.
So how'd you know there was a leak? The alarm?
No, so I want to say Kata, my wife, was the one that was like, the house smells like gas, and I'm like, really? Oh, that's weird.
Fredo was like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were there.
Yeah. But it's crazy. It's really weird. Like, you take for granted things that you have naturally.
Oh, dude.
And then when it's gone, even for that week or whatever, dude, it's weird. It's really crazy.
It is.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Man, so I'm just think about it, man. If you do go about taking, out one of those senses, I think that hearing is one of our most important, right? Because really our hearing, it establishes like a balance for your body. So if you take that thing away where, the ear might be saying, because I'm not the eye, I'm not as important. But you take away this thing and now you lose, a specific function that otherwise you have. So when we start, trying to set a level of importance for these things that we might think of as unimportant, I guess you can live without pinkies and such, because they say, what do your pinkies really do? But then you lose your pinky. Yeah, yeah. But everything gets distorted.
Yeah.
Right? So
Everything has a role to play. There's a reason why your body is the way
And
it's designed.
you said it so well. You're like, we're insecure about the wrong things.
Exactly.
I might be like, I'm not this enough.
Yeah.
Or I'm not that good at this.
Oh.
But you are good at something.
Exactly.
Like, God made you specifically to do something, to accomplish something, to fulfill something, to add something into the world. That's why you're here at this time and place, at this specific moment.
So then is there a good thing to be insecure about?
I think it's good to be aware, right? It's good to be aware to kind of make yourself more well-rounded. But it's one thing to be aware and another thing to stress out over, like, I'm not that good of a reader. Like, I'm not, and I'm just going to, and you're just kind of getting down on yourself. But maybe God, there was, this is, I think it's connected, but it's not going to sound like it. Like ADD.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, I know where you're going.
Yeah, ADD, right? My, supposedly it's a lot more common in boys than it is in women, right? And there was a guy, shout out to Dan, he told me this. He's like, people don't realize that back in the day, ADD was actually and I might be butchering this, ADD was the hunter's DNA.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, because it's not like attention, it's not a deficit of attention, it's so much attention. Because when you're hunting and you're back in the day, you got to think about like spears and the saber-toothed tiger. We're trying to hunt and provide for our families.
You have to be extremely like conscious of your surroundings.
Exactly, because you're so conscious and you're so focused and you're like,
Yeah.
that's like the hunter's trait.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? But today, it's like, oh no, we need to give you pills and medicate you to chill.
Yeah.
You're too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But back in the day, you would have been a crazy hunter.
Exactly.
Right? And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we get so... Is that trip?
Yeah.
Oh,
it
it
is.
really
Yeah.
is.
That's a trip.
Especially when back in the day, you know, you try to get a little boy to sit down and sit still. And back in the day, they actually tired him out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
they actually was like, okay, you know, for whatever age group, there was actually an intense recess or PE program.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know? Especially during Kennedy's days.
Yeah.
I remember he instituted a
Presidential fitness test or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was like you had to do a minimum of like 13 push-ups, and you have to be able to do X amount of squats or
Yeah.
whatever.
It was a
Run
standard.
mile and all
Yeah,
that other craziness.
and
was a
now
standard you had
it's
to hit.
like, oh, I don't feel like running today. All right, whatever.
Exactly.
They need to bring that back.
They really
Oh,
do.
for
Yeah.
sure.
They do.
There's so much of our childhood that we learn, mannerisms, disciplines, even just habits.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me growing up, exercise was a big one because I'm from that time where it was about doing as much as possible, being the best in your class physically, and then just rigorous PE classes.
Yeah.
So I just need
Bring it
them
back.
bring it
Yeah.
back.
Back when the female PE teachers used to look like dudes.
Yeah. Exactly.
I always
Great
see-
job, Billy!
Yeah, I always see memes of.
Oh,
of,
it's that
of
movie. It's in my head. I shouldn't have thought that.
Mr. Man. Man.
But it's a standard now. That's we've lost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a standard.
yeah. Kennedy actually went on and said one of the worst things to have is a plush or a chubby child. I forgot
Yeah.
how he said it. It was like it's sad to see, you know,
Yeah.
in this such a rich country to have
Exactly.
just such a chubby child or a you know
Yeah.
fat kid.
Because there's a study that they found that kids who were I want to say first or second grade who were unable to do the monkey bars. You know what I'm talking about? Who, if they weren't able to do the monkey bars or
Failed in
they never
life.
tried, yeah, that's what it was. And when they got older, they were unable to make hard decisions.
Yeah.
They were unable to take risky actions. They were way more risk
Averse.
tolerant. Yeah, averse. Yeah, and the kids who were able to take that courageous step
Yeah.
and do the monkey bars and
Yeah.
take that overcome that fear
Yeah.
were more able to make hard decisions
Yeah.
and be decisive.
Yeah.
The kids that weren't
Absolutely.
can't make decisions.
That's part of the issue with the kids nowadays, man. They lack mental resilience.
Yes.
You know, so anything that one challenge that pops up that, you know, we're used to overcoming, you know, just by, you know, those little small things. Being able to do the monkey bars, you never really take into consideration like what that did for you.
But that's crazy, right?
Exactly.
I can't do it. I have an IEP.
Exactly.
I need to get treated special.
Yeah, exactly.
My wife tells me, man, all these stories
Yeah.
for kids. Oh, it infuriates me. I'd go to jail. All right, I'd either go to jail
Yeah.
or I'd be
You want
fired.
the monkey bars, Billy?
Yeah, I was like,
Exactly.
I would.
I'm telling
Thank
you,
God I'm
man.
not a teacher.
No, man, I have
Shout out to all the teachers. Man. I don't know how you do it.
Yep.
We need
I
you
don't
so bad, and it's hard because the administration is working against them. It's
Exactly.
not working with them. You know?
Exactly. Man, you think about it, because when I was going through high school, we weren't allowed to, well, the women weren't allowed to have like the spaghetti straps.
Oh
That
my
show,
God.
like midriff.
Oh, dude.
You know, the
Now the
shorts had
dudes
to
are
be-
wearing those, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
What do they call it?
Little-
Sexual.
little tube top.
I forgot what they call it. Body acceptance or
Yeah,
sexual
something like that.
something. I forgot
Yeah,
what it's
exactly.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's
you think
crazy,
about just
bro.
how much we have changed. Like, really, what was that? Maybe in the past, like 20 years.
They're getting rid of
It's
all
tough.
morality, man.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
And that
There's a
goes,
reason why we had these rules in place.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's because one, it's either a distraction, or two, you come to school to perform to get educated, right?
Exactly.
Supposedly, you come to school you can learn things, so you can become well-rounded, so you can understand the dynamics of the culture, and you find your place or what have you. And now everything is about sexuality. Everything's about sexuality and how some sort of victimizing mentality. I have this problem.
Exactly.
No, you need to toughen up.
Yeah.
You don't have a problem. Your only problem is that you're being molded to be a little bitch.
Absolutely. And I guess that's the thing, man,
You know?
because you start accepting these things into like the schools, and now the teachers end up having to essentially like, nah, it's okay that they're showing their midriff and such. So now you're normalizing that sexuality.
Yeah.
Up until it gets to the point where the kids are going to be naked going to school again.
They basically are.
Exactly.
I went to go pick up Kara at some point, and she always tells me, "Oh yeah, these kids, like I'm always seeing ass and boobs and all this stuff," and I'm like, "You can't say anything." It's like, "No, we're not allowed." So like, what do you do?
oh, they're not allowed. They can't even like.
No.
Really?
Yeah, because that's
Exactly.
some sort of discrimination.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, what are we doing, man?
Exactly.
What are we doing? I mean, I already know that why the direction of the world is going the way it is. Evil has accelerated itself.
Yes.
It's not hiding anymore.
Yes.
Because Jesus is coming back, right? The end of times is right around the corner, right? We're in the birth pains right now. But it's like no one is standing up and trying to fight this either. We're in this jail of comfort, you know, and we're surrounded by all the reasons why we should not get up and fight back. You know, oh, I gotta work.
Yeah.
If I get up and speak the truth, I might, get ostracized by the community. If I, I might lose my relationships with my friends or my family even, right? If I say or do X, Y, Z, right? And so, anyways,
And
it's
the rise of social media doesn't help that. It actually accelerates that.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I mean? Like,
especially with the algorithms,
Right.
the people that are in charge want to show a certain thing.
Right.
It's like, propaganda. It's propaganda.
right. So like if you go to a restaurant and you have a bad experience or you have a great experience, you can like Yelp about it, leave a good review. Other people will see it. Now they'll come.
Yeah.
And you can easily do the opposite and destroy a business super quick. Word of mouth.
Yeah.
These guys suck, whether it was true or not.
Yeah.
You could put it on there,
Exactly.
and then now the rest of the world will base their perception off of this one person,
Yeah.
whether true or false. And that's getting accelerated.
Yeah.
And that, like, what's happening right now is exactly it. And you guys hit on all three of the spears right there, right? That's why we want to restore masculinity, why we're here to protect children, and why we're here to restore and rebuild these family values that are just, I feel like, just gone out the wayside.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like these are the real problems that I feel like men want to talk about, but they don't know how, and they don't have other people to do it with, or they're just playing it in their heads, and they're just like, I don't know what to do.
Every day they just get a little bit more sour. Nobody knows why.
Yeah, seriously,
Yeah.
right? You have no outlet, you have no brotherhood to talk about it with, like other
And how do you fight
wise
back?
counsel, right?
How do you fight
What are
back?
you going to do by yourself,
Yeah.
really?
It's like all the laws that they pass, right? Did you vote on any of those laws? I know I didn't.
I didn't know.
Whenever they take their votes, like, why don't we get notified?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Why isn't there a better way? Anyways,
Exactly.
going back to your Yelp analogy, I ever seen those reviews on like Yelp or whatever, Amazon, and it's like 1 star, never eaten here.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see those all the time. They're
Really?
like 1 star, never eaten here, right? And they write in the comments, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like,
Dude, see,
go kick rocks, bro.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, that's someone's
Yeah,
livelihood, you know
or
what I
like
mean?
on the
And it's-
Amazon products,
Yeah.
they do the same thing. They're just
Exactly.
like 1 star, haven't bought it, just looks weird.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just like, what do you go somewhere, bro?
It's
Like
the
you have way too much
competition,
time
man.
on your
That
hands.
is, yeah.
It's the competition.
It's the
you know?
competition, bro. See, that's
ridiculous.
crazy, bro.
I'm telling you.
That's crazy.